Ora and welcome to the Tourism Chat Show. I'm Michelle Caldwell and it is my great pleasure to have you back here for the very first episode of 2025. So happy New Year, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Well, it's been a hot minute. Yep, it's been about 3 weeks since our last episode, and hopefully you've all either been really busy entertaining visitors to your business, or you've had a nice break with family and friends and enjoying what hopefully has been some good weather. It's been a bit mixed, I hear. Now, I've had 3 weeks over in Australia. I had 2 weeks on the Sunshine Coast and a week in Brisbane, and boy, was it fabulous. You know what they say about Queensland, beautiful one day, perfect the next, and it did not disappoint at all. And can I just give a big shout out to Jetstar, who are now doing direct flights from Auckland to the Sunshine Coast. And I think it's about 3 times a week. We flew directly into the Sunshine Coast on this flight, and honestly, it's so easy. It's like arriving in a little country airport when you get there. Customs is kind of one person. It's really easy to pick up your bags and you're out on the beach within an hour maximum of landing at Sunshine Coast Airport. So if you want to get over there and do a little bit of exploring, I would highly encourage you to do that. And if we've got anybody from the Sunshine Coast tuning in, feel free to jump back on that plane and come and visit us here in New Zealand as well. So yeah, great holiday, great to catch up with family and friends, and obviously it's just a really nice time to sit and reflect and do a little bit of planning as well for the year ahead. Not going to lie, my daily walks along the beach, a lot of the time I was thinking about what I would be doing differently this year, how I can grow my business, and what I've got in store for me in 2025. And of course, I saw a lot of people jumping online talking about their word of the year, and I thought, you know what? I need to do this. I've never done it before, and I chose elevate. So as we head into 2025, I'm setting my sights high with a word that perfectly captures my goals for Destinate. And that is, as I said, elevate. We elevate our clients' success by helping them shine in the competitive tourism industry. We elevate Destinate's impact, building on our passion for empowering smaller operators to achieve big results, and elevate my own journey by refining, growing, and continuously delivering value. So this year for me is all about growth, transformation, and taking things to the next level. So I'd love to hear from you. What is your word for 2025? Have you thought about it? Have you got one? Well, if you haven't, maybe now is a time to think about that. It's really great to give yourself a little bit of focus, I found. And when you're writing your business plan or updating your business plan, you can kind of just reflect on that word and see how it all ties in together. So yeah, that worked really well for me. Now, while we're on that discussion of growth, I am about to finish a pretty exciting project that I've been involved in the last few months. So I will have some time to accept new clients. So if you're sitting out there going, I really need some help with my marketing planning, I need some help with my business strategy, I need somebody to help me get in touch with the tourism trade and build relationships with the international tourism trade. Hey, well, I'm here and I'm happy to have a chat about how I can help. And no, I don't just accept businesses located in Taupo. I will deliver projects anywhere around New Zealand or even East Coast Australia for that matter. So yeah, get in touch. You can find all of my details on the episode notes or just head to the website destinatenz.com. So what have we got today? We've got a great episode. I thought we would go and find a few people who have worked at tourism who aren't necessarily working in tourism currently. So a bit of a Where Are They Now series. And to kick it off, we've got a bit of a tourism legend joining us today. It's Guy Robinson, who spent many, many years working for Avis Budget Rent-A-Car. And he's very well known and loved in the industry. He's currently living the life up in the Bay of Islands, and it sounds glorious. He did, well, you'll hear in the episode, he took me for a bit of a wander to show me his view from his beautiful home up there. Unfortunately, this is an audio podcast, so you won't see it. But hey, check out our socials and I might just do a bit of a clip to show you what's going on there. But yeah, it's great to hear from Guy. It's great to see what he's up to. And I'm sure you will really enjoy this episode. And it won't be the last in our Where Are They Now series. I'm going to find a whole bunch of other people who have worked in our industry or have maybe even moved across the ditch and working in the Australian tourism industry now. So watch this space and make sure that you subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening. We are on all of the major podcast apps. And yeah, we're going to be delivering content to you very regularly throughout the year. It may not end up being weekly, but when we decide on how often it's going to be and I get that all organised, I will, of course, give you an update and you can mark that in your diaries because I know you won't want to miss a thing. So for now, sit back, relax, enjoy this great chat with Guy Robinson, and we will catch you next Wednesday. Ka kite. So today I'm with a bit of a blast from the past. We have Guy Robinson on the show. Kia ora, Guy.
Kia ora, how are you?
Good. How are you going?
I am sensational, thank you. It's a sunny day up here up in the north.
Excellent.
On New Year's Day. It's brilliant.
Yes, Happy New Year. Forgot to mention that.
Oh, Happy New Year. Oh, maybe better than the last. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, look, tell me, where are you actually physically at the moment? We're on Zoom, so we're not.
So I'm physically up in Kirikiri, Bay of Islands, the birthplace of the nation and also birthplace of moi, and the place where my soul regenerates. And, you know, I do love it up here, and I'm going to show you after the school's finished a little view of my sunny outlook from the place I'm living. And
be a bit jealous.
Yeah. So that's where I am physically, and work-wise, I'm with the company called Ace Rentals, which is not the car Ace Rentals, which everyone assumed.
Yes.
It's actually heavy machinery. So rollers, diggers, excavators, all the practical stuff that I know nothing about that I'm involved in. So I'm the GM of that business there, and we've got a branch in Dargaville and Kirikiri, and also with a different brand in Auckland and Christchurch.
Oh, cool. And I think I mentioned to you when we first chatted about this that it sounds like every boy's dream job to work with diggers and tractors and big machinery.
I think there would be a lot of boys like that for sure.
And a few girls, to be fair.
Yeah, and absolutely. And a few girls. They're good too. Good at driving the diggers, that's for sure. I want to have a boyish tutu and, you know, have a really good play on them. But I'm probably more switched and in tune with the cut and thrust of sort of tourism and, you know, all that sort of thing. And yeah, but it is good fun.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So look, there may be a couple of listeners who don't know who you are, and this is a series that we've just started on the show to talk basically where are they now, and you're kicking it off for us. So let's go back a little bit and rewind the clock and tell me a little bit about your tourism history and career.
So I think really the tourism side started off, and probably not known to me, I was at Ansett New Zealand for 4 years, and I was a business development manager. And I looked after the corporate side of things. So that was my real sort of first corporate sales role. Ansett New Zealand, it was before it became Qantas New Zealand, and it wasn't owned by Ansett Australia. So, you know, they did an amazing job marketing wise, because they had the Whisper jets, which I found out much later were absolute dogs. But the actual selling of them and the quietness of them was just amazing. So we had a real brand presence through very strong marketing in the New Zealand market. So we had some very loyal corporates who like the underdog and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So that started there. And really, I was on the tourism side, I was with Outbound. So I was actually more dealing with the travel agencies. Mm-hmm. And that's what I enjoyed, the fact that I'd actually got exposure to that side before I came to the amazing inbound tourism side.
Yeah.
So I was approached by Budget Rent-A-Car. I thought my ego might not be able to go from being in an airline to a rental car operator, but it was the best move I ever made. Yeah. Because with the rental car operator, and I'd say this to a lot of tourism people, the type of business I was in, I was far closer to decision making. I was far closer to what was happening in the business. Whereas, with the airlines, you get so many layers, you actually sort of you lose your potency, like as an account manager, rep, and that sort of thing, because you actually don't know truly what's going on. Some people do, of course, and that is a generalization. But the fact that it was a much flatter structure. So with that, I ended up being there 20 years, and the first couple of years was business development, corporate, and then switched over to the inbound side, the dark side, and never looked back, to be honest.
Yeah.
And basically I was with Budget, and then I took over the Avis brand as well. This is through a number of restructures and changes through the times, until eventually I was, what was I? Gosh, something big, leisure partner. I had basically Australia, New Zealand, inbound and outbound tourism. I'd attend all the trade shows, ATE, Trends, ITB up in Europe, and WTM in London, and all these powwow in America, etc. So there was a lot of travel. But I was big on form with the tourism industry. And the other thing is, as well, with the rental car business, we're exposed to all the online travel aggregators and all that sort of thing as well. So we had different channels of revenue popping up, and we had to either resist them or go with the flow and try and sort of see how we could work with them.
Manage it.
There was so many challenges, through that 20 years. But I had a really great career there at Avis Budget, and those in the know knew that I had a good role, and it was a good role, and a good business, and colleagues of mine that knew what because I know a lot about customers and things like that, so we'd share information, and it was Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. So were you a COVID casualty?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So I mean, it made sense. I can't remember if I looked after. Gosh, what was it? Was it maybe 187 million worth of revenue?
Ooh.
And that was Australia, New Zealand, and tourism, and us, inbound leisure tourism, and there were 4 in my team, the 3 in Aussie and 1 me, reporting to the commercial manager at that time, because we'd had a few restructures, as we always tended to, and it was logical for me to go. Of course I didn't like it or want it, and the truth is, Michelle, at that time, even though I was in a great role, I really loved it, really loved most things about it, I knew I needed to challenge myself and do more. And I made the mistake, of course, about having a conversation with my boss, like in the Christmas prior. And then COVID hit. And like I say, it was a very, very simple process for them. It was tough at the time, because I had to actually make one of my team redundant an hour later, and this is all through the COVID process. So, I'm just one of many, many people who had a really crap time during COVID. I was happy to leave that business and would have been happy to make redundant, but in a time of COVID, no. But then I just had to segue and do, all sorts of other things, like you possibly might be familiar with.
Yeah, you have had a few interesting roles. You were working on a winery at one point, weren't you?
Well, not on a winery as such. Basically, a good friend of mine, Luke Demonay, owned Frenchman's Hill Estate in Waiheke.
Yep.
He did sell the property, but there was still plenty of very top quality wine, because he bottles it for at least 8 years before he sells, etc.
Wow.
So basically what I did is, he was helping me out, I was helping him out, through COVID. I did other odd jobs as well, in that time of COVID, which was really challenging through lockdowns, etc., particularly with Auckland.
Yeah.
But I helped set up the website. I did a number of things, sales and marketing wise. Whether it's a good or bad thing, I don't know. I really got used to very nice wine. So I can bullshit on about it a bit if I need to. But, and I've done a sommelier course, or just a one-day type course as well. But I wouldn't call myself an absolute expert, but I really did, learn a lot from that. And that was part-time with other part-time roles.
Right.
I then got a full-time GM role with Luxury LAS, which was a inbound operator business. And with the lockdowns that came on board, I was supposed to have 6 months. I said, look, we got to wrap it up 3 months, and we got to wrap up the business 3. We really had to do that sort of thing. And it was really sad for a lot of people, but some people had managed COVID well, some people hadn't. So,
Yeah.
you know, look at things
Yeah.
like that.
And some businesses were able to tap into domestic market
Yeah.
a lot more than others, weren't they? You know, it was just, such an uncertain time for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was really bad in a lot of ways. And then I'm thinking, and then I got a job with Right to Drive, which is essentially light rental car, but it was for those people who had an accident and they've got a legal right to have a replacement car if they're not at fault. So it was good for a while. Unfortunately, sort of what happened is the promise is that I'd be brought on to manage the country and then bring in other brands. But because of what had happened, because Australians, very hard to get, Michelle. And, they had other brands and things like that, but they had too many challenges in their own market in Australia. So essentially my role wasn't shooting to the stars, doing a whole lot of stuff. It was kind of, it plateaued.
Yeah.
And, eventually they had to close branches and my role was, needed to go basically, which I could take as a kick in the guts, but I didn't. You've just got to have resilience and go, well,
Yeah.
they didn't fulfill the promise. They didn't, they didn't come good on what they should have. I was sold something that didn't eventuate. And, I did my best with what I could and leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then talking to Mr. Jason Hill.
Oh, yes.
Had a coffee with one morning and he said, "Oh, look, I've got to talk to someone this afternoon." I said, "Okay, cool." So I heard all about him, of course, and then didn't hear from him later. And then he rang me up and he goes, "Oh, that person I said I was talking to? Yeah, well, they've got an opportunity in Tekabo." And I was on the phone. I walked over to my wife and daughter, and they're talking. I said, "Well, what do you think about Tekabo?" And my wife looked at me and said, "You can go." Laughed, and Jason laughed. And so that was it. So, and that was with some very amazing people at Ngāi Tahu and a very incredible role. And look, if I'd wanted to live there with the family and the family wanted to live there, what a role. It was just a GM. You've got a cafe, you've got a diner, you've got outdoor tours, stargazing, world renowned. You've got Mount John, which is exclusive to us, which is the high point. You've also got indoor tours with great technology. And then you've got some amazing people there as well. Some not so amazing, of course, and that was part of the issue. But I was dealing with a whole lot of things and I just enjoyed, really the whole scope of that role. Yeah. So I got some amazing experience from that and a lot to do with many things there, sorting out contracts, dealing with landlords in different areas, signage on building, council dealings.
Yeah, cool. So when you look back, what do you think are some of the unique skills that you've developed while working in tourism that you might not have gained working elsewhere?
Well, I think if you're a person that enjoys people and you're genuine about it, tourism is just going to bring out the best of you. And I think that's what most of us are like because we like a good conversation. We're not, and most of us we enjoy the catch up and we enjoy talking about the business. It's just a shame with the tourism business that it's so up and down, for us as people, because we can see how good and what the potential is. But as far as things I've learned, I think I learned a lot about the business sense and a lot about promises has not been fulfilled, as in, when I was younger, I was so positive and expectant of the next year being better than this year. And, you want it to be, and your business, of course, judges you and wants it to be. But the truth is, you'll get a bloody, a global crisis, financial crisis and all that sort of thing. So, and, COVID or whatever. So it's really, I think you do build up a lot of resilience, but I think sometimes, since I've left that, it's good to leave because you look back at the emotions that you had attached to it. And maybe if I go into tourism next time, and probably it's an age thing as well, but you'll actually have a nicer resilience and just go, I'll handle it easy. I accept, I want to do the best, make the most we can out of this, but I accept the fact that, if the UK closes the borders, it's done it.
Yeah. You've mentioned resilience a couple of times now. Like, how do you find that in yourself when you're going through these crises and moments of, upset or change,
Mm.
uncertainty? Have you got any tips for people out there? Because this has been a common thing in our industry, right? There's been a lot of people who I got laid off in 2020 as well. So yeah.
Well, I think with resilience, like COVID's really helped me in a lot of ways. I've learned and had a lot more opportunities. And so I look back at that and spin the positive story. I forget about the angst I went through at different times. And, I still do sometimes. It's like, oh, goodness, why, why did this happen, or why has that happened, or whatever. I think that's, I think for me, you have to have a night or whatever of just losing yourself and swearing at the walls or whatever. And then you need to just go, right, what do I need to do? And you talk to people, and it's really good talking to, because there's a lot of help out there and not so much natural help, but friends that'll help you, within the industry, because of course they understand, but it's also other people, you sort of put your name out there and go, well, this is what I'm looking for, what can happen, etc. And you've got to blame the wider economy or the wider global events rather than yourself.
Yeah.
And I think building resilience is you've got to do it, but you've got to have that emotion in your role, and you've got to have that emotion of supporting your customers and your whānau, your staff, or your colleagues. But when it comes to a certain point where a decision has to be made that you have to leave, or you've got to go, or whatever, or you're not achieving target or whatever, you've just got to go, okay, I've done all I can. Have I done all I can? Yes, I have, or no, I haven't. What do I do about it?
Yeah.
I guess it's a tough one with resilience, because sometimes I can be so resilient it's not funny. Sometimes I can be averagely.
Yeah. I think that's quite normal though. Do you see yourself coming back into the tourism industry at some point? Would you like to?
I think absolutely never say never. Well, like I did with Dark Sky, like the only reason I didn't stay for long down there at this Dark Sky project in Ngaitahu was because it was so far removed from family and all that sort of thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed the whole ordeal, even though it was really tough and challenging at the time. But I would look at the right role and right place. My preference is to be up north, but maybe I do need to be in Auckland or whatever for a certain amount of time. I don't think I'll ever retire. I'll just do something different.
Yeah.
And with tourism, I'm not so. I don't think I'm so good on the political advocacy roles.
Mm-hmm.
I think I prefer if I can be involved in a decision making cut and thrust.
Yeah.
A business which looks at making money,
operational kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, not even operation. Yes, I guess operational. But I'm a real if I was ever classed as a CEO, which probably wouldn't be, but if I was, I'd be a sales and marketing influence CEO.
Yep. Yeah. So if you look back, obviously you've been around a while and the industry has changed quite a bit over the years. What are some of the most memorable moments that you've had in tourism?
Michelle, I cannot tell you that.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, that time that David Hurst, no.
I don't think Hursty listens. It's fine.
No. So some of the most memorable moments, I think, there was, I wish I'd thought about this question actually, because there will be plenty. I think for me, on a selfish point, it was like really kicking ass and doing well within the Avis Budget world with the tourism business, and also pretty much alongside with that, being able to give the two fingers to the people who had bagged wholesale and my client base and all that sort of thing, where I could prove and show how much revenue and profitability I was giving to the business and stuff like that. So that's a bit selfish, and that was internal stuff. It was pleasing when John Key was the Prime Minister and then Minister of Tourism, because it showed what the emphasis should be.
It kind of gave us all a bit of credibility, didn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know when it's interesting when you talk to people and they say, "What do you do?" and you say, "I work in tourism," and you get a really mixed response, I find. Especially not so much here in Taupo, because a lot of people work in tourism in Taupo, but I find a little bit of that when you go to Auckland. It's like, oh, tourism, and I don't know what they think you do, but it's certainly not what I actually do.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's an absolute gap between the education of what people do and what people think we do, but
yeah,
I don't give a shit, you know. It's like they don't know. Fuck them. Oh, sorry. They're idiots. But yeah, well, of course, also it can be looked down upon, because you're not paid as much and blah blah blah. But there is good roles in tourism, and I think what's happened with COVID is, there's so many detrimental things from it, but there's probably not the key good roles out there, or as many of them as there was. And tourism can make good money, but the sun's got to shine, the people have got to be moving and all that sort of thing. Like even in the business I'm in now, we get a couple of rainy days and people don't want to go and take that digger. They don't want to, they can't go and wet the roads that they're doing their rollers on and all that sort of thing because it's pissing down with rain, etc.
Yep.
So it's a real issue with most of New Zealand, or a lot of New Zealand. We're so dependent on good weather for summer and for our summer peak.
Yep. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of talk down here. Obviously, NZTA announced this week that they're closing the desert road between Turangi and Wairuru between, I think it's the 6th of January and the end of February. And for those of us who work in tourism, we're just tearing our hair out going, that's insane. But then today on the radio, the truck drivers were talking about that's the best time of the year because there's not much freight on the road. And of course they're doing that because that's the best weather and they need at least 13 degrees on the road and all of that sort of stuff. And you're talking about the desert road, which is obviously subject to snow and ice and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting just looking at the different perspectives from different industries.
What are they doing? Are they just resealing the whole thing?
Oh, they're resealing most of State Highway 1. So we've had road closures right through, and this is just the next part.
Well,
so
I wish they'd freaking do it up north because the roads up here are shit.
The thing is they're not doing it, normally when they do the road closures they just say right between this time and that time, but this is 24/7 the whole road's closing because apparently it costs too much money for health and safety and traffic management, so they just close the road completely.
Oh my God. Yeah, because when I was at Right to Drive, we had traffic management systems next door, and I was just like, what is this? This is a whole new ecosystem industry that's growing up for this code.
I say often, if I had thought ahead and invested in road cones, I'd be very, very wealthy now.
I
didn't see that opportunity coming.
I know. How good would that have been? They call them witches' hats in Australia.
Yes, we do call them witches' hats in Australia. Yeah, well done. Yeah, you've been watching.
Yeah, now what else?
So, I know we're getting sidetracked here talking about road closures. Now, look, full disclosure for our listeners, we are recording this well before Christmas, but it is going to be the first episode that we play in 2025. So it's kind of our welcome back. It's a nice little easy listen back into the year. And obviously there's a lot of people who often ask what you're up to, what you're doing. And I thought, well, hey, we'll get you onto the pod and you can tell them yourself. But look, talking, you've talked about some of those memorable moments. Well, you didn't actually talk about the memorable moments because they're obviously classified and locked down. But
I had great trips, Michelle. So I had great trips. And I'll tell you what, the most wonderful things was when you would meet unexpectedly other suppliers or other customers up in Europe when you're on your own traveling. That was just the be all, and that was just perfect. It was just so much nicer.
Yeah.
It was lovely. Yeah.
No, very cool. What do you miss most about working in tourism?
Well, it's funny because I miss the travel, but I really don't miss the travel because it's actually really, really hard work. But it's that eye-opening getting to another country. It's actually having a good relationship with, your buyers in Holland and Germany and that sort of thing, and actually going to a local place for dinner and things like that. It's really, you get a real miss out of that, but you've got to earn that right. You've got to earn, that relationship. So you've got to, invest in it and get time to it. So I do miss that, but honestly, Michelle, the ego of having frequent flyer points and being able to be gold elite and all that. I mean, I do miss that, but it's like,
Yeah.
um,
It's still hard work, isn't it? When you look back at it, like a lot
oh,
of our friends who don't work in the industry go, oh, you're so lucky to go to all those amazing places. And you go, actually, I rarely see anything. You're like literally running from one appointment to the next and running to the next train and carrying heavy bags and, all of that sort of stuff. It's fun because the people that we meet and interact with are fun. And you get, as you say, you get to know them, you build relationships, but it is pretty hard work at times.
Yeah. And I think I miss the dynamics of it all. My big frustrations was always the peak versus off peak and planning for it and trying to sort out stuff. But I think it gave you also a breather, to plan for the big season and that sort of thing. So I do miss the cut and thrust of tourism. I miss all the many relationships, the important relationships, both with colleagues, suppliers, customers, and that sort of thing as well. And I liked looking at the politics and seeing what was happening, but I certainly didn't. I tried not to get involved in the politics too much myself. And I like seeing people being rewarded for doing a good job and all that sort of thing. So, I do miss tourism to an extent, but once again, this whole resilience thing is like, I can easily live without it too.
Yeah. And you've taken some great skills that you've developed in tourism that are very transferable in other industries as well. So that's always a good thing. Is there anything that you're really pleased to see the back of?
I think I'd like to say that seasonality, but that's a common theme across a lot of businesses. Yeah, the politics, but this is a different thing with Avis Budget Group over in Australia and stuff. That's a different scenario. The politics of a corporate business is always tough, but I think you're going to get that in different forms wherever you go. So you just got to suck it up and deal with it. And enjoy the ride wherever you are. No, nothing else at this stage.
Cool. And are you in touch with a lot of tourism people still?
Yeah, guys from hotels and attractions and stuff like that. I can name names if you want. But
you don't need to tell me, but
I definitely I count a lot of those guys as friends and customers as friends. So definitely, like overseas as well.
Yeah.
Still in touch with some of them, and I'd even the ones I'm not in touch with, a number of them I would seek out if I happen to go to London or Frankfurt or whatever. I'd try and be in touch and sort of catch up with them.
Yeah, awesome. And look, we're running out of time, but have you got any other parting thoughts or words of wisdom for those still working in tourism that may be considering whether they want to stay in tourism?
Well, far be it from me if you want to impart any words of wisdom. But I think, with people in the business and just new to the business as well, be open-minded to the channels of revenue in tourism. There's the traditional ways, and you can be a hoity-toity and look down on traditional ways, but I think that's to your detriment. I think you've got to have a mix of everything. You've got to look after those people that have looked after you. Yeah. Loyalty is very important in tourism, and particularly like the wholesale channel. Look after those guys, and it will get paid back, because if you have another COVID or something like that, that's when you need them. Don't chase. I mean, by all means, chase the new money channels. Like when I was around, it was the online aggregators. But most of us, well, some of us bigger guys, we didn't want to deal with them too much because we're giving them too much power, because they're faffing around with our Google AdWords space.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of they're competing against you. Yeah.
Yeah, but we still had to, we had to use them like they used us. So I think if you look at your different channels of revenue and suss out what they are, get to understand them and know how to deal with them. Some of them you've got to be loyal to them because they're loyal to you. Some of them you can use them like they're using you. Some of them you just turn off and on as you are. But as long as it's an honest, open conversation with those people, I think you'll do a lot better. In the industry. It's very hard, particularly if you've got multi-channels like I had, to be really open and honest with everyone. But it is possible to do. So you can do it and be respectful of those places that have given you business for a long time.
Mm.
Even if it's diminishing, you've got to respect the past for what they've done for you. Even if it's not you personally, it's your business.
Mm. Yeah. There's a lot of history in tourism, isn't there? And I remember saying to somebody at some point, it was many years ago, and I said, people from the supply side of things, unless you're a business owner, but talking generally, will come and go. But when you look at those inbound operators, they own those businesses. You know, the important people that we deal with own the businesses, and they have very long memories. And that reputation that you build in one business will actually follow you through others. So it's like never burn a bridge when you're going through. Like, there might be times when you have to make a tough call, but it's, you don't really want to.
Yeah, I think tough calls can be done with open conversations.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to agree, but as long as you both know, or every party knows, you're fine. I just had that conversation today at work. It's like, it doesn't matter. We don't need to agree on this. This is how I want it. This is how you want it. This is where we're going, type thing. You've just got to,
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay, so do we want to put a plug in at the end for the perfect job for Guy Robinson?
Oh my goodness.
In case someone's listening and they're...
Oh, yes. Okay. CEO of something, really flash, and
travel, $1 million salary.
travel business class or more, of course, maybe only a couple of times a year, but to really awesome clients that like to be wined and dined but aren't too demanding. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So if there's anyone listening that has that job available, I'll put your LinkedIn details in the episode notes and they can flick you a note.
I didn't do myself any favors, did I, Michelle?
If you want to do it again, we can re-record.
Another time. How about more wines now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been a fun chat. So thanks for joining me. And good to catch up and hear what you're up to, even though we did have a little chat last week. But it is good to share your story with the podcast listeners. So, listeners, you can hear there that we got cut off. Actually, Guy did take me for a little bit of a wander around his backyard. We looked at the lawns that he'd just mowed. We looked at his beautiful garden. We saw the bird box in the corner and lots of other things. So, might use that for the bloopers, but had to cut it off at that point because, we got a little bit sidetracked and you just didn't want to listen to that. So, thanks for joining us this week. That's all we've got for you. We'll be back next Wednesday with a Trends Unpacked episode. So we'll catch you then. Ka kite.